The Four Nations Face-Off break is here, so why not do a Mailbag Monday focus on the draft, trade deadline, free agency, and more. Stick around for the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
Someone took out the countdown. I just realized.
Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast. Hope you're having a good post-Super Bowl Monday. I'm Jay Zawaski with Mario Tirabassi. Sarah is back today. Very exciting. Welcome back. How was your trip?
My trip was good.
What did you do? What was the highlight?
I went to Park City for my annual ski trip I try to do every year.
Nice.
And I skied open to close for 2 days.
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, it was great.
Are
We
you
got
sore?
snowed. I'm a little sore, but if you have the right form, you won't be sore.
Okay.
That's why I wanted the
All right.
few times I ski, I am in horrible pain. I'm sure you had your Shady Rays ski goggles on and all that stuff.
I did have my Shady Rays ski goggles on.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, we're glad you're back.
Thanks. I'm glad to
Welcome
be
back. No, you know you're not, but it's okay.
No, I am. I gotta redo some stuff that's in eCam, so I'm glad I'm back.
All right,
Fun.
good. Just got to
Nice.
clean up some fires, so we appreciate it. Thanks everybody for being with us. Hit that like button for us. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. And if you're listening on the old podcast app, thank you. Follow, subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Like we mentioned, we got a lot of mailbag questions from our diehards and from our typical Twitter fans. We got a little bit of Hawks news, nothing crazy. Ethan Del Mastro is the one guy sent down to Rockford for the Four Nations break. I'm a little bit surprised it's only him.
Oh, yeah, I guess. But I mean, Nazar clearly wasn't going to go back. Slaggert, I think, is his recent play. They probably are rewarding him with a little bit of enjoy your break NHL player Landon Slaggert. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at one guy to go back, Del Mastro kind of made the most sense because he was one of the more recent, if not the most recent call up that has played not as much. Colton Dock already did go back, so Del Mastro makes sense. Allen's been up in the NHL all season. I mean, you could have made the case, say, like, also put him back in Rockford because he hasn't played the last few games. But I'm not. Yeah, it's good for Del Mastro to get back down there. It's going to help out the Ice Hogs a little bit. They've been kind of starved for some of those young guys since they've been up in the NHL. So yeah, good for Ethan to go back, play a little bit, play some more minutes, maybe kind of get a little bit of that confidence back because his play's been good, but I think, just getting back to a spot where you can dominate a little bit more will be good for his confidence.
Definitely. I do think it sends a nice message to the other guys you mentioned, Nazar, Slaggert, Allen, of like, you're here. You're NHL players. We're not treating you as up and down. You're not here for a cup of coffee. Now, when Kyle Davidson spoke, what was that, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, I said, like, does this mean these guys are permanent or never going back? He kind of pushed back against that and saying, like, well, no, I can't sit here today and say they'll never go back. But if things continue at the pace they have, then, yeah, they'll stay here. And I think save for the last game, Nazar's been really good, kind of a step back in the last game. But it's never going to be just arrow pointed up the entire time.
Yeah,
so
no one ever develops that way.
Yeah, I'm really glad that they have sort of told those guys. I really think that sends a valuable message to those young players.
Yeah,
definitely.
And you could also send a few of those guys down if you wanted to at the end of the year if Rockford's in a playoff spot, and then boost their lineup that way.
Yeah. And there was one other little note in Jeff Merrick's sheet blog today for the Daily Faceoff. He said he expects Pat Maroon to be traded, which is a bit of a change than we've heard locally.
Different perspective, yeah.
Not that it was a 0% chance, but there was some thought that Maroon might just choose to finish up the year here and play it out and not get traded. Jeff Merrick says he does expect Pat Maroon to be traded and mentioned Tampa or Florida as possible destinations. Reading the blog, it felt like he was kind of trying to find connect his own dots that make sense for Pat Maroon.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a development that one of the biggest insiders in the league has said he expects Pat Maroon to be moved.
Yeah, and I think it was never a 0% chance, but I think like you were saying, like Scott Powers kind of alluded to the fact that like it seems like Martinez and Maroon will be treated as if they have no moves, even though they don't, based off of their, just kind of given the veteran respect from the front office. But if it makes sense from the team side of things and the player is okay with it, then you have the opportunity to make a deal that makes sense, then you go for it.
Lebowski 5 says, what are they getting for Pat Maroon, an 8th round pick in 5 years? You're getting a roster spot for a young player.
And maybe an 8th round pick in 5 years. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
2 birds, 1
don't
stone.
worry about the return. Pat Maroon, I mean, look, if you brought Pat Maroon in here to be a mentor to young players, mission accomplished.
Yeah, he's done it.
Look at what he's done for Lucas Reichel on and off the ice. He's given him a father figure to look up to, a family to go to at the holidays, and Lucas Reichel's played his best hockey as a Blackhawk.
If only Pat Maroon could have been here when Mackenzie Entwistle was here.
Oh,
filled that family
to provide
void.
the family?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
Maybe that's why he waited.
When it could be.
They don't want that kid. It's bad vibes.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, maybe if you thought, in July when they signed Pat Maroon in free agency, it immediately was just like, yeah, that's somebody that playoff contending teams will want at the deadline and maybe gets you a late round pick. You never were expecting like, oh man, Pat Maroon's going to pop off and, be the Max Domi or whatever of kind of like 1 year deal. And then he pops off and you get a 3rd round pick for him. That was never the expectation. But, guys like him and Craig Smith, and Martinez too, it was just like, okay, veterans, guys that have played a lot, know their role and can execute in it. And then Martinez and Maroon, they've got the Stanley Cups to back it up. Like those are guys that at trade deadline time, playoff teams and contenders that want to boost the depth of their team will look to. So, yeah, I mean, if again, like I said, like if there's a deal that makes sense for both Maroon in this spot in his career and the team, then you do it.
Yep. All right, let's get to the mailbag, starting with our CHGO diehards who hit us up via our mailbag channel on our Discord. If you'd like access to that, become a diehard at allchgo.com. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later in the show. This one is from Lord Tobias.
Ooh, that's nice and big.
Nice. Thank you, Sarah, for acknowledging that I'm 47 and getting a 75-inch screen with the question on it for me. It says, Lord Tobias says, I was watching TSN's podcast show Overdrive. Mm-hmm. The whole panel thinks that Celebrini and Bedard won't sign their extensions next contracts for long term because they take losing personally and won't want to be associated with the respective Gong Show franchises. I think it was funny, but could hold some truth. If I were Bedard and Kyle Davidson doesn't get this team and the makings of a playoff team together, then I'd be thinking the same. We've heard this since the day Connor Bedard was drafted.
Since before he was drafted.
And I just want to remind people, the way organizations get the number 1 overall pick is because they absolutely suck.
Because they lose.
That's what a draft lottery is.
When's the last time a good team got the number 1 overall pick?
Exactly.
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Look at how bad the Avalanche teams that Nathan McKinnon played on were. Mm-hmm. I think Sidney Crosby's an exception because they didn't have a pretty big jump in that lottery. And Mario Lemieux came back to play with him.
Yeah, and the year before they got Crosby, 2 years before they got Crosby, they got Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah.
The year before they got Crosby, they got Evgeny Malkin. And the year after that, they almost had Jonathan Toews, but they got Jordan Staal, who played an important role on those.
And he worked out pretty well too.
And they got Chris Letang. That team in the years before and after Crosby built their core.
Curiously, how did they get those guys?
They were bad.
Well, but through what process did they attain those players?
They didn't win games.
Yes, and then they selected them in the
lottery and the
draft is what the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
They drafted these players. So you lucked out. You got the number 1 overall pick for Connor Bedard probably sooner than you would have planned in your rebuild, but he's here. I think Connor Bedard has a very firm understanding of where the Hawks were when they took him, that any team he'd be joining as a number 1 overall pick was going to struggle for a few years. This is normal. What the Hawks are going through is normal.
Yes, absolutely. For teams that tank and rebuild, that don't have the pieces around this top player that you're building your franchise around now, it takes time. And it takes, you got to put pieces of the puzzle together. What I will say is that Bedard's a super competitive guy. He's never lost as much in hockey as he has these past 2 years. And he's not signing up for this amount of losing for his entire career. Neither are the Blackhawks.
Right.
They don't want to keep losing like this, because a losing franchise, not only are you going to lose on the score sheet and in the standings, you're also going to lose in the seats and in the market. You're going to lose fans. You're going to lose what's the word I'm looking for? Relativity. Being relevant.
Yeah, relevance.
Yes. There you go. You're gonna lose that in the city, and that means money in your pocket that you're losing. Winning teams make a lot of money, and the Blackhawks still make a lot of money as a big market original six kind of cornerstone franchise in the NHL, one of the most valuable teams in the league. But they're still doing that while not being a winner. They've still done that over the last 10 years to be one of the most valuable franchises in the league. Now imagine they get back to that 2010s standing where they're at the top of the league. This organization can make a ton of money, and that's what they're in the game for, is making money. Winning championships makes you money. So Connor Bedard wants to win. So does the organization. They want to win, and they're going to go hand in hand. The growth of Bedard and the guys around him are going to go hand in hand with the growth of the team and the success on the ice. So he's not signing up for all this losing, and that's not the plan for the organization. As much as you might see on social media for some people saying all Kyle Davidson and Danny Wirtz want to do is lose and sign checks, those two things don't work together.
Absurdity.
So Connor Bedard wants to win. And what I'll say is, too, on the narrative of Celebrini or Bedard are not going to stick with their teams, I will say, listen to the fan bases and where those opinions and comments come from. Both of them, the loudest, I would say, are Canadians and specifically British Columbians, because that's where Bedard and Celebrini are from.
Interesting.
Both from Vancouver. And the Canucks fan base are the most dug in that not one, but both of those players will leave their teams as soon as their entry-level contracts.
Just like
to
Patrick
go home,
Kane couldn't wait to go to Buffalo.
To go home and play for the spotless, well-oiled machine that is the Vancouver Canucks. No problems there.
No, I can't think of a single thing going wrong with
Vancouver.
And just a reminder, too, like, you don't have to look far. Less than a year ago, the Blackhawks and Kyle Davidson went hard after Jake Gensel. He chose Tampa. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get that. Sure, of course. Right? But, like, he has shown the enthusiasm and the willingness to go spend big on a free agent. And let's not forget, Tyler Bertuzzi signed him. Teuvo Teravainen signed him. Like, he brought in players of value for multi-year deals and convinced them to come and be here as part of this. Those guys had offers elsewhere. It's not like there was no offers on the table for Teuvo or Tyler Bertuzzi.
They would have had options.
Of course. Mm-hmm. And maybe they give him a little more money or an extra year, and that was the difference. Sure. But people around the game see what the Blackhawks are doing. They see the plan. They know the prospects, and they know they've got a ton of money to spend. They've got a great city and organization to sell. I think this notion that Connor Bedard can't wait to go is coming from people who are hoping to speak it into existence, as you alluded to. All right, we've got to hit the break zone. Lots more to come. If you got any super chats, we'll get to them here in a little bit. Make sure you hit that like button for us. It's only 46 likes. Come on, we can do better now. Let's outscore the Eagles. Huh? We can do that. Hit that like button. We'll be back with more on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. And whether it's college or pro, the app to bet football is Circa Sports Illinois. So keep that in mind for next football season. In the meantime, you can bet basketball, hockey.
Baseball's coming up.
Baseball season's almost underway. You may have heard.
Baseball seasons that you can wager on are coming up soon.
That's correct. And Circa Sports, it's sports betting the way it should be. Circa Sports Illinois has high betting limits, low holds, and exceptional customer service. Bet on all your favorite teams in every game this season. Spreads, props, futures, or in-game. Circa Sports has it. Fund and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
And hey, did you guys and girls know that light beer just got better?
I do know. It's right in front of me.
You do know. It's right here in front of me. It is Sam Adams American Light.
Hell
It is
yes.
clean, crisp, super easy to drink the way light beer should be. No gimmicks, no fluff. I'm sure if you enjoyed your viewing parties of the big game last night and the big halftime show and the big trophy presentation and all that goes with it, the commercials as well, you may have done it enjoying a nice Sam Adams American Light. Sam Adams American Light is not your average light beer. It is brewed with 100% American-sourced ingredients from local independent farmers. It's light beer made the right way. And, you know, when you choose a light beer, you might be thinking, all right, it's a light beer. It's not gonna fill me up all that much, not like a darker beer or those double IPAs or whatever they are.
Good.
But I might also compromise on taste and all that. Not with Sam Adams American Light. Light beer shouldn't feel like a compromise. That's what Sam Adams believes. It's an American classic so smooth, you'll want to crack another one, because what's better than one beer? 2 beers. It's always Sam season. Light beer just got better. Grab some Sam Adams American Light, available now at select Chicago retailers. Of course, you got to be 21 or older to consume it, and please drink responsibly.
And that Circa read reminds me I've got to open my Circa app and cash out because I took the Eagles on the money line.
Nice.
Look at me
Good
being
idea.
smart. All right, back to the mailbag.
You had a 50-50 shot. Good job.
Got up. Wow, big jump in likes. Thank you for that. Let's keep it going. Hit that like button for us. Let's get to at least 100 here to kick off Four Nations Week and celebrate top liner Teuvo Teravainen. All right, Sarah, let's tear it open. Here's King Tanner. I love this guy's avatar because it's a big man digging into a giant burger.
Oh, nice.
It always inspires me to get through the show and get to lunch.
Get a giant burger.
That's right. King Tanner says, who's going to be the biggest player gone by the deadline? Everybody's talking about a Donato move, but personally, I think Seth Jones is not playing against Utah on March 7th.
Biggest player moves at the deadline, I believe.
Physically biggest? Pat Maroon.
Yeah, by physical stature.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's Donato because I think we said this past week, and I still feel this way. If Seth Jones is traded by March 7th, I will be shocked.
Same here.
I will be very shocked because it's not an easy contract to move, and I know that there's been a lot of reports of, you know, there's been some interest in him and all that, but I still don't see that is going to be a deal that gets made by March 7th. So I think it could be something we see that happens in the off season if there's really a lot of smoke around it. But it might also just be that Seth Jones is around. I'm not sold on the Jones trade rumors being solid enough for me personally that I'm behind it of like, yep, I feel like that's going to happen. The biggest one I feel like is going to be Ryan Donato. And even that's not a guarantee.
I sort of tend to agree with you. I would be absolutely stunned if they move Seth Jones for all the reasons you mentioned. And I also think too, maybe a year ago, if there was all this smoke around Seth Jones, maybe Kyle Davidson would be a little more willing to say, all right, well, you know, I don't really know what the future holds cap-wise, and if we can get out from under this, you know, for $5 million and just have him on the books, maybe. But now with the cap going up, I don't think the necessity to move, first of all, it wasn't anyway where the team is at this moment. But now I think, especially with the cap going up, there is no rush to move him. The issue, we need to remind people, I know these things pick up steam and momentum that, you know, Seth Jones is the problem and he's public enemy number one and yada, yada, yada. And all this comes from the think pieces written after that trade is made and that signing is made that, oh man, this is a bad contract. Stay focused, because the issue with Seth Jones is and always has been the contract.
Right.
It's not the player. It's not the guy in the locker room. It's not the guy in the community. It's none of that stuff. The only issue is that Seth Jones is overpaid by, I'll go as high as I think he's $2.5 million too much.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Can accept that. But now with the cap skyrocketing over the next few years, there is no rush to just move him just because of the contract.
Right.
And if you get to that point 3-4 years from now, Seth Jones suddenly becomes much easier to move. He's still relatively young.
Just turned 30 at the beginning
And
of this
maybe
year.
you're willing to eat 2 years of half that deal instead of 5 years of half that deal. Or maybe you find someone to take on 25, you take on 25% of it instead of 50, whatever it might be. I just don't think there is this rush to do it anymore. Now, I'm not saying if an opportunity to move Seth Jones for, if you're only, I would say $25 is about as much as I'd be willing to absorb right now for the next 5 years. But if someone wants to take Seth Jones's $9.5 million deal, I'm listening. I'm open-minded to that. I just don't think it suddenly has the urgency that it had over the last few years, or seem to have. I guess.
Those kinds of deals, those kinds of contracts, the necessity to move them and just be like, we need to get this off our books as much as possible, whether it's buyout, whether it's a trade and we retain, and you eat the loss on the trade because you're not trading a guy like that usually and coming out with a net positive. Those kinds of moves for guys that have those kinds of contracts are usually for guys that are like, they are a detriment to the team when they're on the ice, or they're completely washed, can't play anymore. Brent Seabrook,
Seabrook was washed.
He was,
and one of my most beloved Blackhawks ever. He was effing washed, and they had to get
when his time was up playing hockey, and he was done, retired before actually being retired, and they moved his contract to Tampa. He was done. He couldn't play anymore. Like, he could not be an NHL defenseman anymore. That is not the case with Seth Jones. Seth Jones is not a guy who is done, washed, or a detriment to the team when he's on the ice. Now, does he have some bad games? Does he have some bad plays? Of course.
And had a bad stretch after coming off the broken foot with a new coach.
But Jones is still a guy that on all 32 teams plays in your top 4.
Yes.
And on contenders, he's in your top 4. With the Blackhawks, he's your top pair defenseman. He's a huge minutes eater. From The Athletic and Dom Luszczyszyn, he does the player cards. He does the market values. He's the one that always says Seth Jones is one of the top 10 worst contracts in the NHL. He's been going down that list as his play has gotten better over the last few years. He's got Seth Jones's market value as how he's playing this season at $4.5 million. Is that well under his $9.5 million? Yes, but if he was a $7.5-8 million defenseman, it's still you're under the market value. But would you say Seth Jones is playing as a $4 to $5 million defenseman right now? Yeah, and I think that is a lot different than if he was the net worst defenseman on the team, net worst player on the team. Whereas guys with contracts like this usually get to where you're saying, I don't care, eat $4 million or eat 4 years of his contract just to get him out of here, is where that talk is usually for. So again, I don't see Jones being moved. I'd be shocked if they do it. And really, if you do move Seth Jones, and you're going to retain on it, for a number of years. Again, like I said, you're not really going to win that deal outside of some people's perspective of, thank God Seth Jones is off this roster and you have a roster spot open. I don't see how you win that deal outside of getting someone onto the NHL roster that is going to help you immediately and be on an upward trajectory, or to be a more positive impact than Seth Jones has over the course of those 4 years that you would be retaining his salary. That's the only way that you win that deal, is if you get someone that immediately improves your roster and does it for 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's just, you just don't have to, oh God, we've got to get out of this any way possible, and we'll trade assets to do so. We saw it happen with Brian Bickle, and it was $4 million, and now we know why. Brian Bickle was going through something medically, but he had a great couple playoffs. They signed him to a deal that he had earned, and then all of a sudden he was not effective anymore, and they had to trade Teuvo Teravainen to get rid of him. Seth Jones is not that kind of player, not that kind of contract. So we'll see. It would shock me if it happened. I don't think there's a 0% chance. Several in the chat mentioning that it would probably be easier to pull off in the summer. I tend to agree with that. But if you're a team like Dallas who's down a stud defenseman that's looking to win a Stanley Cup, Because as much as I love the way the Stars are building, like Jamie Benn is a year older, Matt Duchene's a year older. Like there's only so many shots you're going to be able to take with the team this stacked.
Mm-hmm.
They've got guys coming up that'll get better and they're going to stay good. But I don't think you've got right now. They're the perfect mix of youth and veterans, and they're primed.
I feel like Dallas kind of made their Miro Heiskanen Band-Aid move with getting Cody Ceci, and I feel like going and getting 4 years of Seth Jones that's putting a cast on an injury that needs a Band-Aid. Because I think they expect Heiskanen to come back by the end of the regular season, be ready for playoff time. So I think if you're looking like, oh, Heiskanen's out, we need someone to replace him, and you go and get Seth Jones, once this season is over, however far you go, and if you're looking at Dallas and it's just like, okay, we got through that. Well, now we have Seth Jones for 4 more years. Now what are we gonna do? I feel like that would have been if Heiskanen was out for like the year and the playoffs, then maybe I think you look at it. But I think they got CC in the whatever trade that was, I forget.
Like Granlund.
Granlund, yeah. So that's kind of like, let's cover our back end for a few weeks or a month or two here while Heiskanen's out, and they expect him to be ready to go.
All right. We got time for one more, Sarah? Should we hit the break zone real quick?
One. Let's do a quick one.
Let's do a quickie.
Quick one.
Quickie.
And a quick one is this one.
All right, here we go. Timothy Yurko says, under the radar prospect, what is happening with Martin Misiak? How is he doing? Is he projecting as an NHLer or not really?
Well, I'll say this. Misiak's doing fine, but he's on an Erie Otters team that has gone through some stuff this year.
39 points in 41 games, 16 goals, 23 assists.
Yeah, I mean, he's been having a fine season. He's not really trending on that, like, impact top 6 centerman guy that you maybe thought he could have turned into. He was a mid-round pick, the 3rd round pick.
Second round, 55th overall.
Second round, okay.
Yep.
Late second round.
Late second.
I always get his draft spot and Lardis's draft spot confused. They were in the same draft, but I always flip-flop them.
That's when they were being drafted. I'm like, who is this?
You were down. You're like, I don't know who this child is. But yeah, Misiak is doing fine. He looks like a guy that when he does get to Rockford, whether it's at the end of this season or into next season, I think his trajectory and his development path will be a little bit slower than maybe some people want it to be. But he's, like I was going to say, he's been on an Erie Otters team that they lost their longtime owner of the organization who passed away. They've gone through head coaching changes. There was a disciplinary change made at with their head coach that I believe there was some racial comments made. So that's kind of been turbulent. So, I mean, off-ice things are happening with the Erie Otters that might be affecting some of those players in that environment. But Misiak, I think, even still is having a fine season with production.
All right, more to come. Hit that like button for us. We'll be back with more on CHGO Blackhawks. And we've been telling y'all for years about our friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to get tickets to whatever amazing event you want to go to. Going to see Taylor Tomlinson on Wednesday.
Nice.
Where'd my wife get tickets? Yep, Game Time.
She's funny.
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who Taylor Tomlinson is?
No.
I can make fun of you for this. She is currently relevant.
Really?
And your age. Comedian.
I don't.
Comedian.
Maybe I know her face. I'm a face
Look her
person.
up. Yeah, look her up.
Yeah, I will.
Anyway, use Game Time for that. They've got a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for events even easier. Here I am on Game Time right now looking at tickets to the USA-Finland game Thursday in Montreal. Can you get up to Montreal for a game?
Maybe.
You can get in there for $28 to watch Team USA and Finland. You want to sit in the 100 level, 118, 107, 121. You could sit in the 100 level for just over $100. They've got the entire tournament on there, so go to Game Time and check it out. They've got curated deals to make it even easier to find the best prices on great seats. And if you're going to a new arena you've never been to before, like Montreal, you can see the view from your seats before you buy. It's awesome. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use that code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
How close are your tickets to the stage?
We're in like the middle of the first floor, I believe.
Okay, not bad.
Like halfway back on the first floor.
Enough buffer zone that your deodorant choice of the night might not make an impact.
I will have my Mando wipes with me in case.
Good. Just to be sure. If you were sitting front row, you don't want to be in that smell zone out there where the BO might
the grundle zone.
the BO might affect the performance, and that's where Mando would come in handy for those that need it. Mando, if you didn't know, is a men's deodorant brand that's hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean. Mando, they're going to make sure that every inch of you from head to toe and all in between is smelling fresh and smelling good. They got great scents that are geared towards men, like the Bourbon Leather, Cloverwoods,
manly,
Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. Not amateur sport.
Cloverwoods is a goat. It's
Pro
goated,
sport.
as the kids say.
It's goated. And yeah, look, I love the Mando products. I've used the pH balancing body wash.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Good stuff. Keeps you clean, and the deodorant lasts 72 hours. So if you're not able to reapply for whatever reason, if you're out there on Mount Fuji smelling like Mount Fuji and you're not able to reapply, you're covered for 72 hours. You are not going to stink while you're out there. And hey, speaking of not wanting to stink, an occasion coming up that you're going to want to look and feel and smell your best, Valentine's Day.
Oh, yes.
Men. That's coming up, so put that on your calendar. Make sure that you got Mando covering your pits and your butt and your grundle and everywhere in between to make sure that you're smelling good. So make sure that Mando's starter pack is perfect for you, maybe a new customer or a returning one. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, the cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like the mini body wash, like I was saying, or the deodorant wipes, as Jay was mentioning, and free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers can get $5 off of that starter pack with our exclusive code, and that is equivalent to 40% off. Use the code CHGO when you go to shopmando.com. That's SHOPMADO.com.
MANDO.
Support our show and tell them that we, from the CHGO Blackhawks show, sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando.
Tom P says, maybe I'll try the deodorant. Tom, I'm telling you, man.
You should.
We endorse a lot of stuff on here. Mando, I use it every day. It smells delightful, lasts forever.
Effective.
It is definitely worth it. So check it out. That is a personal endorsement from us. That's not just ad copy.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. And I know like the starter kit is a really great way to start if you're not sure.
Yeah, you get a little bit of everything to try.
Yep. 100%. All right. We are close to 100 likes. I think we're going to get there. I feel confident, Sarah. How
Boom,
about
just
you?
got another one.
Larry is asking us to take our shoes off. That's going to be a super chat, Larry.
Wait,
You got to
what?
pay for that, buddy. No free feet. All right.
Yeah.
Let's open up the bag before Larry sends an actual super chat. We have to take our shoes off. This one from Brandon. What a cute kitty he's got there on his avatar. Big picture mailbag. Let's say this scenario plays out. The Hawks win the draft lottery this season and become ineligible to improve their draft position via lottery for the next few seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be open to moving next year's pick, a stronger draft by all indications, for another top pick in this draft or for an established player who fits our competitive timeline? Let's say Zegras for an imperfect example. To handicap things, let's say we could trade next year's draft pick to Nashville for their draft pick this year, allowing us for another shot at a top forward.
So would you trade the Blackhawks' own 2026 first-round pick for a opportunity at another lottery pick this year?
Would you trade that? I don't want Trevor Zegras for that. I could be talking to Trevor Zegras if Anaheim's like, he needs a change of scenery. Let's figure something out.
Yeah.
How about Toronto might have some cap issues? How about you use that negotiating ploy to pry away Matthew Nyes, who is a restricted free agent this summer?
Can't imagine that they're going to let him go.
Or you offer sheet his ass.
Sure. That could be something.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. So in this question, you're saying that they would win the lottery from not the number one spot, which means that they have then won the lottery by improving their draft pick twice in 5 years, which then eliminates them from winning the lottery by improving their draft status.
Right.
They could still win it next year if they finish dead last.
They have to be dead last,
and then win the lottery. If that happens, it's going to be rough. But I think so you then eliminate the option to win the lottery. So then this is a move that would have to happen like leading up to draft day, because you would have no more opportunities to win the lottery in the next 5 years. So you would say we'd have the number one pick with our pick, and then we'd also try and go in for another lottery pick this year, knowing your lottery position next year is potentially not going to be as good, or it won't be as good as possible. So load up with what would then be 3 first-round picks in this year's draft. 2 of them, theoretically, in this scenario, would be within that lottery, and then the other one is Toronto's. I'm open to the creativity of it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying punt on next year's pick just for the sake of trying to do it, but I think I'm open to the creativity of it. We've seen Kyle Davidson be aggressive in moving up and adding draft picks.
He tried to do this very thing last year with
exactly.
Demidov.
Yeah,
that's exactly what he was trying to do.
So he has the creativity and the aggressiveness in him. They still made 3 first-round picks last year. They made 3 in the 2022 draft, in which they started the day with 0. So I'm open to the creativity of it. I'm not necessarily all in on doing it, because I still think having that 2026 pick of your own still has value, because are we expecting to be outside of the lottery next season? I don't think so. Depends on what Kyle Davidson does in free agency and leading up to the start of the year with trades and stuff. But
even if you add Mikko Rantanen into this team, which is the dream, right? Or whoever your dream guy is, I still think they're probably still a bottom 5 team. I mean, you need a pretty massive jump from several prospects to...
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And, I guess the thought would be you win the draft lottery this year, so then you take Schaefer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, well, we have another first to take one of these Martone, Misa, whatever Higgins types that you're kind of, everyone's kind of like
Roger McQueen.
Pick a name out of a hat of those guys. They're all kind of, depends on who you talk to. Yeah. There's no real consensus number 2 at this point.
I think Higgins is thought of that way, but
I tend to agree that that's the one that I like the most, but I think it all varies depending on analyst. I don't hate it.
You also got to factor in, are any of those teams that are going to land 2 through 5 if the Blackhawks win the lottery, and you want to, like they said, Nashville in the question.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any chance that Nashville, who was not expecting to be this bad this year,
they can't be this bad again,
giving up this first round pick. Like I can't imagine that they're going to do that, because
unless someone says, we believe we are going to be ass again next year, and we think that this draft is so deep at the top that we're going to give ourselves a chance to get 2 in the top 5 or whatever it might be. That could be tempting. Giggity said it earlier. I think if there was a time to do it, it was for this draft, right? Mm-hmm. Do that, make that exact thing at last year's draft. For Demidov. Yeah. I don't know if there's that kind of guy in this year's draft that I would really.
Yeah, unless you're trying to be like the Canucks when they got the Sedin brothers and get the 2nd and 3rd pick, or the 1st and the 2nd pick. Unless you're trying to navigate your way that way, and trades don't usually happen that way anymore. That was 1999 that draft happened in.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that draft.
Yeah. So yeah, I again, I'm open to the creativity of it. I'm not jumping at the opportunity to give up on next year's first round pick, because I think you're still going to need that.
All right. Good. Very good question. I like that thought exercise very much. Thank you very much. Zegras is a topic. We've done the Zegras show many, many times. It's the name that won't go away. Just because he's young and he's exciting, but if I'm giving up that much, I want a lot more.
Agreed.
All right. This one from a warm Bedards. Which of the prospects is your dark horse to make the team next year? Specifically, one who hasn't played a game during the NHL season yet. Also, I haven't heard anyone talking about Ilya Safonov and his chance to join the team soon. His contract is up this year if the Hawks wanted to sign him.
So I'll start with Safonov. I still feel like there's good potential there for him. He's a big guy, plays down the middle. Yes, KHL contract is up after this. At the end of this season, the KHL season ends usually like in March because they start earlier, they end earlier than the NHL. Safonov to me feels like a guy who is a roll of the dice. I think early on in his development path, it looked like he was getting a lot of responsibilities in the KHL as a young guy, which was great to see. I feel like he hasn't taken that next step in the KHL. Like I think he's still kind of in that middle role in the KHL, and I feel like at best you're talking about maybe a fourth or third line center in the NHL, and that's at best. And I feel like you could roll the dice on a guy like that, but I'm not necessarily certain that the Hawks are going to be all in to try and do that. I think if you're looking at European and KHL prospects specifically, Roman Kantsarov is more of the guy that they would really go in for and make sure that he gets to North America and plays a more significant role. So Safonov could be signed at the end of his season this year. Could be signed this offseason, come over to North America. I feel like he would go to Rockford, and unless he has a massive training camp and makes a really big impact, I feel like that would be the path for him. A dark horse guy that hasn't played in the NHL yet that could be on the NHL roster next season. I think it's I think it's a long shot because I think they're going to take their time with him. But maybe Sam Renzel. I think he's ahead of schedule. I don't necessarily believe he's that far ahead of schedule, but I think the way he closes this season, the way he plays at the end of the year with Minnesota, they're looking to be players in the Big Ten tournament, play deep there, have an opportunity to play deep into the NCAA tournament. So we'll see when his season does end and when he does get to the professional game. I feel like he's a guy that's ahead of schedule, and if he comes in, continues that upward trajectory, like takes those major strides, he could be a guy that could be in contention for a spot.
That's an interesting one. And, I think part of the stuff you worry about with young players is, are they physically big enough to withstand the rigors of the NHL?
Yeah. It's a lot different than playing 40 games in college.
Not a problem for Sam Renzel. Big kid. Little spindly, little skinny, but
he's gotten firmer in the last year.
And we know
as Anders Sorensen would say.
Yeah. That's a good one. I think that is certainly a dark horse. It would surprise me. And again, we might see him.
That's when I'm like a little bit of a reach, because I still think once he does turn pro, he'll be like Lev Shinov and Vlasic, and they'll take their time.
And I do think though there's a chance we see him like for a game or two with the Hawks this year.
Yeah, it depends on when the season ends.
Yeah, just like they did with Nazar last year and Slayer. But I'm going to go. Savoie has not played in the NHL yet.
That's true.
And another salute for my guy Samuel Savoie. And I just think that, if you're looking for something this team maybe lacks a little bit, it's a little bit of snarl, and he provides it. I think they thought they addressed that when they brought in Tyler Bertuzzi, but I think Bertuzzi gets more of a reputation for being a snarly player than he actually is. He's very low penalized. He doesn't fight. He's tough. He's willing to go in front of the net and pay the price, but he's not a guy who's going to, after the whistle, mix it up or lay devastating checks.
He definitely did that earlier in his career than I remember seeing in recently.
I think somebody like Savoie could come in and add, hey, man, your job is to go out there and be physical. Yeah. Finish your checks, piss off the opponent, pop a puck in the back of the net now and again, and we'll be very happy with that. I think I could see him, if they don't address it in another way, Samuel Savoie getting some NHL time next year, which wouldn't be he was drafted 3 years ago.
Yes,
missed last year because of a broken leg for the most part.
pick. He was a Bowman pick.
Yeah. But I think that one makes some sense when you look at what they lack. And especially you could sort of do it in hey, we've got a rough couple games coming up here with some more physical type opponents. Let's call him up for these.
Just, give him an opportunity to tap into that skill set that he brings. That's something that, you hear about guys like that. Is like, it's not a skill that you can teach to be an agitator and someone that can play that role, get under the skin of opponents, whether it's your physical play, your aggressiveness, your forechecking, your mouth. Like,
right.
He likes to play that way. He likes to, he was a Davidson pick, 2022.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was his first draft.
I forgot about that. Again, some of those get blended. That 21-22 class, I get blended in my mind sometimes. But he's a guy that I think the comparisons to Andrew Shaw will not go away until he's probably made a name for himself in the NHL. But he's a guy that is cutting that from that same mold.
Todd in the chat says, isn't that what they're wanting from Doc? Finish checks, etc. It is what they want, but it's also their frustration with him that it doesn't happen often enough. And I think Doc's probably got a little more skill than Savoie. And I think Colton Doc is kind of aware of his skill. And I think if you ask Colton Doc who he wants to be, I think he wants to be like Tyler Bertuzzi. A willing competitor, physical in front of the net, guy who can pot, anywhere between like 15 and 30 goals a year on a good year.
Be nice.
I don't know if we'll see that from Doc, but I think if he's looking for his ceiling, Tyler Bertuzzi could be a nice guy for Doc to kind of hitch his wagon to and go to school on a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Similar kind of players.
I think Doc is not a guy that wants to be pigeonholed as go out there and just be a wrecking ball.
Right. I think Savoie does want to be that.
Yeah.
I think it is his life's desire to be someone who runs you over and pisses you off and laughs in your face when you're mad at him.
Absolutely.
I think that's what drives him more than anything. All right, let's hit another mailbag. By the way, if you want to hit us up on our mailbag, there's lots of ways to do it. You can tweet at us, of course, at CHGO_Blackhawks. And if you're a CHGO diehard, we do have a very special mailbag channel on our members-only Discord. So we usually give those priority, as we're doing today. So if you really want to get your question heard, the best way is to either join the Discord by being a diehard or super chat. Super chats will get you right to the front of the line too.
Which we do have a super chat, I believe.
Do we have one, Sarah? Let's do it. I just said front of the line.
There you
go. Brandon Clemens, $2, says Aiden Thompson as top 10 NCAA scorer is exciting. Yeah, it's another guy who could definitely get a look this year for a few games.
I think I have a strong inkling that they are definitely going to make him one of their signings once his season is over. Again, he's another guy that could be playing into April with a very talented Denver team, 2-time NCAA champion. This year he spent time as the leading scorer in the NCAA earlier in the year, still at the top of the list. He's fast, he's played primarily on the wing this year, but again, like he's been a big producer for a top program. He's an important part of their championship team last year. Like he feels like a guy that's got that well-rounded game, can do a little bit of everything, and that speed is a top factor for him. So yeah, another guy that keep him on your radar.
Doc is like 4 inches taller than Bertuzzi, Lebowski says.
Doc is 6'4".
Yes, it does not dictate how you play though. Eric Daze was a foot taller than Andrew Shaw. They did not play the same way.
Yeah.
It is a willingness factor. And Quake 2 LMCTF says, hasn't Doc led the team in hits since he's been up? Yes, he does play physically. The issue, and if you ask Under Sorensen, he'll tell you the same thing has been, he'll do it for a stretch of 5 or 10 games, and then the next 5 or 10 games, that intensity will kind of drop off a little bit, and they'll have to find it again. Consistency has been the issue with Doc. So, yes,
I think he
is willing. And for the record, I really like Colton Doc. I think he could be a really good player, and I'm rooting for him to do that. I would love to have him, in the top 9 for the next 10 years, and I think he's certainly capable of that, but he's got to put it together consistency. I liked the way he played in the NHL. I had very few issues with his game when he was here. So I think arrows pointed up on him. I'm just saying, I think there's someone who has to do it every single night, and if Doc can turn himself into that, perfect. Yeah. That would be perfect. All right. I agree. Mongo, only a pawn in the game of life. I've heard some people voice concerns about players like Lourdes and Cancerov, they're in all caps, having issues with their game translating to the NHL due to lack of physicality. Your thoughts on each?
Yeah, as a small, I see no issues with guys like Cole Caulfield and Alex DeBrincat and Martin St. Louis in years past, finding their games in the NHL. I don't think you necessarily need to be the biggest guy out there to have success. And with DeBrincat specifically, he's a guy that has a high quality shot. He's a guy that has he's mobile. He's not the fastest guy, but he's mobile, and he's able to get to those open areas of the ice that, players who are smaller can't really create their own space all that often. So you have to be able to kind of be like, all right, where's the soft spot? You see that with being this the day after the Super Bowl. You see that a lot with like smaller wide receivers. Like, okay, be able to find a soft spot in the defense where you're not, where there's open space that you can utilize. And for hockey, like being able to get to those areas offensively, and then you have a top level shot like DeBrincat does, that can allow you to find your success and your path in the NHL. I really feel like Nick Lourdes is a guy that can do that. He has a high level shot, and being pretty much in the same build as Alex DeBrincat, maybe a little bit bigger. He's a guy that if he can learn from someone like that, to be able to find those areas and still get your shot off, like you can be very effective that way. I really don't feel like Nick Lourdes, with his ability to shoot the puck and his willingness and happiness to shoot the puck, he's had more games this year where he's had 10 or more shots on goal in the OHL than he's had one shot on goal in the NHL, and he's had at least a shot in each game that he's played. I really feel like Lourdes, if he can play in that mold, is going to find a way to get to and stay in the NHL. Same with Cancerov. I think Cancerov has a little bit more of creativity in his hands than Lourdes, but still is like fast, agile, great shot. His stature translating from the KHL, bigger ice rinks, more space inherently, to North America and the NHL, AHL, where the rinks are a little bit smaller, things happen a little faster. That's where that transition is going to come into play. Yeah,
I also think it's. We just talked about Savoie and Doc and the need to have physical players on the team, but I just don't. There's been very few guys I've seen in recent years come to the NHL and be like, well, you know what? They're just too small. They had a ton of skill in the. I mean, look at Lane Hudson. Look what Lane Hudson's doing in Montreal.
The reason Lane Hudson was a second-round pick and fell to Montreal is because people were just like, too small.
Yeah,
won't be able to do it at the NHL.
I just don't think it's as big of a factor anymore. Scott Stevens isn't back there looking to take you off the trolley tracks 3 times a game anymore. Players get more space. Hits are more enforced. Headshots are more enforced. Star players are protected usually for the most part. Mostly, so, would you prefer that all these guys be 6'4", 230? Yes, of course. Sure. But I just don't. I think we're not in the 90s and early 2000s of the NHL anymore, where a little player is doomed to just get pushed around and shoved around all the time.
Right.
I mean, we have seen moments where Connor Bedard is knocked off the puck kind of easily, but at the same time, he's leading the team in scoring. He's only getting better. Like, I don't think because he is 2 inches shorter or 3 inches shorter than ideal is going to make a big difference one way or the other.
Yeah, and
skill is skill, talent is talent.
The makeup of the team plays a factor too. If you have guys that create space offensively, guys that are bigger, guys that play physical, that can create space for the guys that are a little bit smaller. And again, it comes down to what role each of these players would play. But I feel like they have these skill sets to be able to be scorers, distributors, not players that are going to have to, ramp up their physicality to fit into the NHL. I think they're guys that you can't put a square peg in a round hole. Like if you have a guy like Nick Lourdes or Roman Cancerov or, Connor Bedard, if they have those high level offensive skills, let them flourish that way. Don't try to change their game because, well, this is the way that you'll find success in the NHL is by being, go out there and be physical, Nick Lardis. Like that's not going to be his game. His game is going to be someone that can shoot and create offense
and be willing to go to the middle of the ice if you have to.
Yeah. If you float around the perimeter, you're not going to have a long NHL career. Dylan Secure.
For the record, thank you. Lane Hudson in his first full year with Montreal, 5'9", 162, which seems generous.
He's not a big kid. He's not big at all.
He's got 41 points in 56 games as a defenseman.
Yeah.
So these small guys find their way. Skill and strength, as Chris Dubio in our chat points out, wins out over a few. I'll point you to Eric Daze, who was huge, and people here called him Daisy because he was big and didn't play physically and wasn't willing often enough to go to the hard areas.
He was the same build as Eric Lindros and played a much different game.
Yes, exactly. Okay, what else we got, Sarah? Want to do one more?
One more.
All right, let's do it. We got plenty of shows this week. We'll get your questions in. Shylanta Sports, I like that. Nice. Says, with a weaker draft class this year, should we try to use the Leafs pick as bait to trade for a bona fide top 6 forward? Oh, I think that is, if they're trading for a top 6, that pick is as good as gone.
What do you mean?
The Toronto pick?
No. You're they're saying trade the pick to acquire a forward who would play in the top 6.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Not a top 6 pick.
No, I'm saying if they're trading for someone to play in their top 6 this summer, that Maple Leafs pick is gone. They're using it to make that trade.
Yes.
I'm saying yes.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. Yeah. If there's a way to get someone like that using that pick, I'm fine with it because that pick is likely going to be in the 20s, mid to late 20s, depending on what the Leafs do in the playoffs, which usually is an earlier exit. But
this is the year, baby.
Sure, could
Don't
be.
put that on record. Delete that. I never said that.
Yeah, I think if there's a trade that makes sense to get somebody that can play that role, preferably a person who's in the mid-20s range, mid to late 20s range, and might have some term still on their deal, I think that would be great. I think the Hawks want people that are a little bit more cost-controlled in trades at this moment before they start doling out new contracts to a lot of these guys that are future pieces and prospects and stuff. But if there's a guy out there that they can get to fit that role, absolutely, it's worth it to go out there and get him, because that late first round pick is it's useful in getting someone for the future. But if you want to help Connor Bedard and the rest of this team improve in the here and now, I'm open to it. Yeah,
I think you're going to have to, if you're talking about someone young, contract controlled, that's somewhat proven. It's going to take that plus. I think that's where the conversation begins.
Need to be a little bit more than that pick, solely that pick.
Yeah. Hey, we got a couple minutes left. Want to remind everybody, while the Four Nations starts Wednesday, the first USA game is Thursday, and we're doing post games for all the USA games and the championship. So Thursday night, US versus Finland at 7:00. We're going to be on after the game, breaking down that like we do Hawks games. So make sure you're with us for the Team USA post-game shows. They play Thursday the 13th, Saturday the 15th, and Monday the 17th. All those games at 7 p.m. And then we're also going to do post-game for whatever the championship game will be. Mm-hmm. That is also 7 p.m. next Thursday, February 20th. So keep that in mind. Put that in your schedules as you're watching those Four Nations face-off games. Remember, if the USA is playing or it's a championship, we're going to be on the air after those games. I'm looking forward to that.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Getting excited, man. Things are sort of lining up for USA here.
They got a good team. And the Canadians are busted up a little bit.
They are. They're scared.
I know. I'm excited about our new graphics we're going to be using.
Yeah, they look cool.
So they're going to keep an eye out for that.
Yes, that'll look good. We'll see. We will debut those on Thursday night after USA Finland. But we're back tomorrow and Wednesday at 2:30. We'll get to the rest of your mailbag questions and maybe throw a guest on or something. We'll see what's going on. We got a long week ahead, 2 weeks ahead with no Hawks games, but there's still news going around the league. There is no trade freeze, so things could still be happening. So make sure you're following us on all the socials and all that stuff, and become a diehard at allchgo.com. That's where you get a sweet hat or shirt the second you sign up, or 35% off a hoodie like Mario's wearing. 20% off
You could get this.
the PHLY
You
one.
can't get this specific hoodie, but you could get the hoodie that is like this one on our website, PHLY.
There you go.
This is a limited edition PHLY DNVR crossover.
Yes, it is. Read into that as you will. But yeah, you get 20% off all the merch beyond the free stuff, and access to our great written content, access to our members only Discords. You get priority on our mailbag shows like today. So many good reasons to join. Please do it. We'd love to have you as part of our community here at allchgo.com.
Speaking of PHLY, shout out to the Eagles.
Yes.
Super Bowl champions. That was the big game last night. What was your favorite part of the game? The game, the halftime show, or the commercials?
I am a big fan of the Totino's pizza roll commercials, in which
those were good.
In which the alien gets crushed between the doors. I love Tim and Sam from the Detroiters, and it's if you watch, I think you should leave, and you like it. Detroiters is now on Netflix. That was Tim Robinson and Sam Richardson's show before. It is so funny. I love it. It's one of my favorite shows ever. Go watch it. By the way, 19,000 people watched the Super Bowl postgame show last night.
Awesome.
So
that's awesome.
Congrats to our friends at PHLY.
Go Eagles. Another all-city championship.
That's right.
I'll say the game was fun because I was rooting for the Eagles.
Yeah, not what I expected.
No, I was not either. I was like, I almost turned it off at halftime once Kendrick Lamar was done. But I was like, nah, I'll keep it on for a little bit longer, see how this game finishes out. And yeah, very happy for Saquon Barkley specifically. I have Cowboys fandom in my blood, and rooting for the Eagles was tough. But seeing Saquon Barkley continuously make the Giants look stupid was a silver lining for me.
Fair.
Halftime show was fantastic. Kendrick Lamar delivered well beyond the expectations. And SZA and Serena Williams also.
I like that he
dancing on Drake's grave.
Two of Drake's exes on stage with him.
Yeah. That was a fantastic show. My favorite ad, and I this might be out of left field, was Angel Soft. The 30-second bathroom break.
Oh, nice.
That was I could not have been happier. I was just like, thank you, Angel Soft, for giving us a commercial that we don't have to hold our bladders for because, I got to see what happens here. No, you told us to go to the bathroom, and I hope, like me, you took advantage of that.
I think all of America did.
I will forever be loyal to Angel Soft toilet paper now.
All right. Fair enough. That was fun. We'll be back tomorrow, 2:30, more mailbag and a whole bunch more on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.